Hey guys, welcome to the daily analysis for today, Friday. Again, because it's the end of the week, we'll be covering the weekly charts today. As I always like to say at the end of the week, it's really nice for me personally, and hopefully you guys get a great benefit out of it too. But I just really like taking a step back and looking at these longer time frames, kind of to get some perspective on the longer term moves. For instance, perfect example is this euro dollar, and we can see it rallying. And over the past few weeks and few months, it seems like the euro is just so high and so strong that it's unbelievable. But then you take a look at this weekly chart, and we're basically at a 50% retracement of the major downward trend starting in 2011 here. So it's really not all that high. It has a lot more room to go, and that's, I think, important to understand as a trader. So that's what we're going to do today. Take a look at some of these weekly charts and maybe some potential for what might be coming in the next few weeks in the general movement and direction of the market. And I think it's going to be really helpful. Before we get into that, we just need to quickly cover our terms, and then we'll get right back into these weekly charts. Alright guys, so these are the terms, and basically the idea here is that for legal purposes, we can't claim to be a financial advisor and tell you how to risk your money. All we can do is provide some free education, and just for the purpose of education, not for the purpose of telling you how to handle your money. Okay, so please understand that there's very strict guidelines and regulations in place for a good reason, and we just want you to be on the same page and understand those. So if you need to pause it and read through those, please do that. And then I'll go ahead and get back into the charts. Okay guys, so again, looking at this euro dollar weekly chart, a really nice reversal here, down at 120 and pushing up very well. One of the things that we've seen here are relatively small pullbacks in the midst of a pretty steep upward move. And so this bar right here, last week's bearish bar is basically the biggest bearish bar in a long time on this euro. And so the question, of course, was, is that going to continue? Is this a sign of a real reversal that's going to break price into similar areas? And so far, it was stalled out this week. Not a lot of movement. We did come right into this 23.6 level on the weekly fib, which I like. I think that's a good level, and if price were to hold, I think it could definitely also bounce, and not just hold, but bounce to a higher high. And so I think there's definitely some buying potential here on the euro dollar. But what's important to realize is there's also a lot of selling potential. You have to remember that we're in a long-term downtrend here. This is just a pullback in the grand scheme of things as of right now. Until it's to break up much higher, all it is a pullback. And so with a reversal bar like this one, a little bit of a pin bar here, we could easily see a breakthrough and a continuation to the previous low, and of course much lower. And so don't lose the perspective that this is, even though the euro is a raging bull, that it could be reversed and crushed at any time. So for me, I still do have a bullish bias because of this upward move. I think that the recent momentum has been really great, and I want to look to buy it, but I'm not set on buying it. So in other words, if it doesn't come into this trend line and make some nice momentum back to the upside, I'm not going to be biased toward buying the euro. I'm going to go ahead and let it crash, and then look for sells if it breaks all the way through a trend line and continues downward with some type of momentum. So I think the euro dollar right now, though it has moved up nicely, and is recently very bullish, unless you consider a few weeks recent, then it's bearish, but recently very bullish on the weekly chart here. Don't forget that there's definitely both potential here, both bearish and bullish potential here. And so, for you as a trader, that should be a good thing, but don't turn it into a bad thing and get really biased in one direction and let yourself, get hurt on the other side. I think that's one of the things as traders that, sometimes we do. We make our bias too strong, almost too arrogant, that we think it's going one way, and then when it goes the other way, it starts to move the other direction. We kind of refuse to believe in the move, and instead of reactionary trading and getting on the right side of the market, we end up just losing trades. And so I'd encourage you to take a look at this euro, keep an eye on this long-term analysis here, the long-term trend line, the long-term Fibonacci levels, and then take advantage of the market once it kind of sets up a direction here on this weekly chart, whether continuing upward off this 23.6 level or continuing downward and kind of breaking through the trend line, looking toward 38.2 or the 50 fib level, and of course that would be short trade opportunities. Okay, so that's the euro dollar. Let's move to the pound dollar. And on the pound dollar, really, same thing I've been talking about for a while. I see three major levels here on this sideways market. 162.92 is the exact pip that I have in my top line. 157.39 is the exact pip I have in my middle line. And 152.86 is the exact pip I have in my bottom line. Now, all of these are ranges, so you can't take them as exact levels. But these are basically the three areas that I think are the major areas of the sideways market. Now, there's another area that I don't have drawn here, but is a pretty decent level, and that's kind of the bottom here where price is really at right now. You can see some of the tails and similar areas that have bounced from here, and so that's again pretty much where we are right now, and that could definitely provide some support for this pound and cause it to bounce up, maybe get a retest of our middle level here, something like that. But overall, we have a lot of great bearish momentum to the downside here. Cruised through 1.6 really, struggled here for a minute but broke through, and really a great bearish week this week. And so what we're looking for here is one of two things: either a bounce, and then of course again maybe a retest, looking for sales up here, or a break here. And if you get a break here, then I think the likelihood that it gets down into this 152.70 area is very likely. And so if I give you just kind of a measurement on pips there, we're talking about from the top here about 150, 160 pips. If you go all the way down to the bottom, about 185 pips. And so there's still some definite room there if it were to break through that level to get some short action. And to me, I think that's a pretty high probability trade. Depending on how you attack the trade, maybe not the best risk-to-reward ratio. Maybe you're looking at a 1-to-1 instead of like a 1-to-2 or 1-to-3. But still, depending on your trading strategy, might fit as a pretty nice high probability trade, trying to catch it as it crashes to that next level. In this recent sideways market, kind of going back to 2010 here, you can see there's really only one point here that broke through the middle area but never made it all the way down to the retest before going back up through. Here there's some times where it didn't even make it to the middle, but once it's crashed through, you can see here it's come down to test in this area, broke through, came all the way down to test in this area, on its way up, came down, crashed, and came all the way through to test on this area. And so then here we had one, it came down, didn't come quite to the middle area, and now crashed. And so really my expectation here is that it will come down and test that bottom area because it's just such a magnet for price as a big level to pull price in. And so that's the pound dollar on the weekly chart. Nice bearish momentum continuing there, breaking through most of our levels, and really again that 152.70 area I think is the next major level to look at for the pound dollar. Okay guys, USD yen made another bullish week after its first bearish week in a long time, as you can see on this raging bullish streak here. Basically, we kind of started breaking out here around 78, and now we're all the way up testing 94. So just an incredible move on the US yen. 94 is a pretty nice level of resistance. You can see we had some tests here and here and here and here and here and then even here. So definitely a little level here that we might see some rejection. Last time we broke through, we came up, that was the rejection right before the complete collapse all the way down to basically almost to 75. And so I'm not necessarily predicting a crash down to 75. But I'd be careful with this USD yen. Another one of those things where, yes, I think that a bullish bias makes sense. It's a raging bull, and the yen is incredibly weak. But just be careful, when that reversal happens. Don't want to get caught in that, and certainly don't want to continue forcing long positions if it starts that reversal process. So just keep an eye on US yen. Keep an eye on that 94 area, and we'll see what we get there. Alright guys, next we have AUD dollar, which kind of for me wins the award for the ugliest chart. You can see on the weekly just so much confusion and shifting, and then lately since we got into this period, kind of just a lack of movement altogether with the back and forth and the tight ranges. And so really just unfortunate the AUD has not moved well, but nonetheless there are some opportunities here because we kind of have this mini base built in here right at 101. And so this is an area where we could get a break and a fall down to one of our levels. You can see how steep some of these falls have been through here. Here was basically 1 week that went all the way down. Excuse me. So some of these collapses have been very real, and so maybe if we get a break and pick up some momentum, we could see a fall through one of these major levels. On the other side is that we could come down here and see a bounce back up, which is kind of coming down into this slightly sloping wedge type pattern here. It's not really a wedge, it doesn't fit. You can see that no matter how you draw the lines, it doesn't quite fit. But nonetheless, obviously sloping down from the top here and having a pretty strong base at the bottom around 96. And so to me, to the downside has more potential. There's less support and resistance. There's less kind of clusters of stuff there, and there's a little more room for it to run. Plus, just the amount of pips from here to the top, level here, or from this level to the bottom at 96, there's just more pip room from here to here than there is on the upside. So what I'm kind of hoping for is that the odd continues a little bit more bearishness, breaks through, maybe tests this level, and then starts falling toward 96, and then I would really look forward to taking some shorts there. Again, even though the chart's not really great, doesn't look very nice, there is some potential here. I think a breakdown towards parity and then below parity would be an awesome opportunity to short for the odd dollar, and so that's kind of what I'm anticipating with the odd. Alright, and where the odd gets the ugliest chart, I think the USDCAD is a close second. Also, not doing a lot here, as you can see. Right now, we're kind of battling between this parity level and 101. 101, as you can see, is a pretty major level. You can see all of the support here, this turn resistance here, kind of battling back down from this level. And so again, kind of a ranging market, but still some potential. We have kind of a slow up move since this reversal down here at 96.25 is where this began to reverse and start moving up. And so we'll see if we can make some kind of channel and consistency up from this leg. Right now it's really not developed all the way, but it's, break through this level, touch the top here, come down, eventually we might kind of get that channel type action and have a lot more trading potential. And so that's something to look out for on the USDCAD on these longer time frames, just to check and see if something develops. It would be nice if we were seeing the full crashes and jumps like this in the weekly chart where there's so many pips to be had, but as you can see, just not the case lately. And so really the thing to do in this situation is to wait for something a little more consistent to develop and then look to take advantage of it at that point in time. And so that's what I'd be looking at on the USDCAD weekly. Okay, next I have the Euro Pound up here. Kind of an interesting chart with this absolutely major reversal move here. Huge, kind of rejection bar heading down toward 84, and then an immediate stop dead in its tracks and immediately turned back up, went through 85 and was getting close to 87, and then towards the end of the week again pulled back a little bit here. So now we're kind of sitting in the middle of no man's land toward the 61.8 fib level, and so this is an area where we could definitely see it come down, consolidate for a while, and then bounce, but because of all this momentum shift in the euro and some of the euro pairs still being short besides the Euro Pound, it looks like this could definitely go lower as well. And so again, I know this is not exactly the most revelational trading advice, but it's just a situation where you got to be careful and be reactionary because it could go both sides. There's definitely upside potential and there's definitely downside potential on the Euro Pound. And so one of the best things you can do is track it on this weekly chart, see what develops, and if we get some continuation moves, if a weekly bar closes above this 87 area, for instance, that's going to be a pretty strong sign that this this trend is definitely continuing, and perhaps heading all the way up here toward our 90 area at our highest high in the past year and a half or so since since we were up here in 2011. And so that's really what to look for on the Euro Pound, in my opinion. Either, of course, a rejection, continuation toward the downside, or a close up above 87 on a longer time frame that gives us some confidence that this thing is continuing to build up on this trend and get toward higher highs. The 61.8 level, definitely a level where we could look for a bounce. If I scroll back a little more here, you can see a pretty long time level that has provided support and resistance, so definitely want to keep a close eye on that one. Alright, Pound New Zealand Weekly, another chart where we're in some interesting areas. It broke through our record lows, got all the way down to 81.20 basically this week, and so it was the lowest that Pound New Zealand's ever been. I got short on the break up here. I'm actually already out of the trade. I moved my stop a little aggressively and got stopped out on the way back up for a decent gain, not a big gain, but a relatively nice size gain considering the risk on the trade. And so that's where I'm at on the Pound New Zealand, still thinking that it could go much lower and would not be opposed to getting back in, but just got kind of aggressive on my stop loss as I was trying to capture that move. Wanted to get my risk off the table in case it was a fake out. So anytime you're breaking record lows, you have to think that there's potential for it to go pretty low. And so I'd continue paying attention to this Pound New Zealand. I personally would definitely be tracking it and letting you know if I get back in or anything like that. Okay, well that's it for the daily analysis, which happens to be the weekly analysis on Friday. Hope you guys enjoyed it. and I appreciate any comments or thoughts you leave below. One other thing I want to draw your attention to is that we're thinking about opening up our trading room to the public. We began a trading room for our mentor students, and so we're thinking about opening that up to other people for a monthly fee if they want to get some live trading. I think the daily analysis is good, but many people want some live trading atmosphere, see how we take live trades, where we put our stops and our targets and all of that. So if you're interested in that, leave a comment or send us an email or something, just so we can kind of gauge the interest and whether it's worth doing that or not. We'd really appreciate your feedback on that matter. Alright guys, thanks so much, and I appreciate your time, and I'll talk to you next week.